is the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and it is time for According to Fastball John and David Jordon. Take it away, guys.
Okay. Three, two, one. Hi, this is John D'Acquisto and Dave Jordon with another round of According to Fastball John. Today's subject is going to be Tommy John surgeries and the new rash of Tommy John surgeries that are hitting Major League Baseball. Reasons why? We have our opinion, and our opinion is our own. But we will try to determine what has been done in the last 30 years and why it keeps getting worse and why haven't they fixed it. So, welcome my co-host tonight, Dave Jordon. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Johnny, happy President's Weekend. How are you?
Oh, I'm presidenting out, moving things around the house like a good president should, you know?
El Presidente.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, it's been a really tough week for pitchers, and a lot of questions are arising, and there's been some pretty good literature and some good articles out there on the stories. You know, Cardinals fans were upset when the news about their phenom hurler, Alex Reyes. Numerous reports were detailing that his MRI results revealed an issue that only Tommy John surgery could hopefully solve.
Right.
Which is a blow to many of their hopes during the season. And that was kind of a top story this past week.
Yeah, he's gone for the year, David. Yeah, he's not going to be pitching at all this year. And it's kind of sad to see that happen. The kid's quite talented. And that was a big blow to the Cardinals organization to have something like that happen. And whenever it happens this early is very, very rare. It's like, what are these guys doing in the off season that would dictate them to have Tommy John surgery coming up or to snap an ulnar collateral ligament? You know, I went through the process. I snapped mine early on in the season, but you know, now the procedure is being done more like what I had done in the onslaughts. They're not replacing it with a cadaver or another ligament from the body. They're opting to trim it and then re-stitch it back. So I saw that in reading one of the articles recently. So it then depends upon the player and how quick that ligament can heal. But you know, it's been 30 years since we've been seeing TJs coming onto players in a heavy forefront, and you're looking at the early 80s, 90s, and late 70s. It just started to come about, but we're seeing a lot more, and yet nothing's been done about it. So
yeah, it's fascinating when you look at Reyes. He has some pretty decent numbers. He's been in minors about 3 or 4 seasons now, and last year in AAA, he had an ERA close to 5, a whip that was above 140. He had a tremendous number of strikeouts. He had 93 in 65 innings. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it does. Yep. Sounds a little bit like a young guy I used to know.
Yeah. But what's funny and fascinating is that he had an ERA close to 5 at AAA. He comes to the big club, and ERA under 160. Whip at 121, and it looked like he had a nice a successful small sample size for the Cardinals last summer. But right now it looks like he's going to be rehabbing for most of this year and probably early next year as well.
Yeah, exactly. He'd be lucky if he shows up in the Arizona Fall League on a rehab assignment, which I would probably say that is not going to happen either. But we do see a lot of young pitchers that we don't hear about because they're not in the major leagues, but they're young prospects that show up in the Arizona Fall League for rehab assignments. And a lot of those kids are going to take the place of guys like Alex Reyes that fell out. And, you know, organizations are reaching out to their guys to try to see what they can do. That puts them in a tough spot. And it forces them into doing a trade when they really can't do a trade, you know, or they don't have enough to do a trade. But, you know, let's get down to the real source of the matter is why has this happened? And I got my own opinion, you know.
Why don't we go back to when you suffered your injury back in '75? What was your rehab journey like, and how is that different than what they're going through today? Like someone like Zach Wheeler on the Mets, who suffered a torn UCL as well back in 2015, and he just had a 21-pitch session yesterday that apparently went. There was relatively no discomfort through that process. But tell us what you see in rehab today when you walk on the fields in Arizona versus what you had to deal with in '75.
Well, in 1975, I rehabbed myself, being very honest with you. I didn't have any trainer that they would look after me and maybe ice my arm and rub it down afterwards. But I was on my own total rehab assignment from what Dr. Frank Jobe told me to do. And all I did was I played catch with the tennis ball up against the wall in right field in Candlestick Park. And I'd squeeze the ball, you know, because I knew I had to strengthen my forearm because that's, you know, where the injury occurred. And, you know, and I started off with a real light, like a squash ball, you know, that was light to squeeze, or a racquetball that was light to squeeze. And then I worked up to a tennis ball, which was a little harder to squeeze, and then into a squash ball, which was very hard to squeeze. And then I started doing the hand grips, you know, where you could squeeze the grips. And so it was all focused on my forearm, building up my forearm again. And that's all I did. And I ran a lot. No, that was the key. The key thing was I ran a lot.
Yeah, we're going to get into the running a little later on this program. But, yeah. In addition to the running, was there any other aspect where were you reporting once a week or, you know, a couple times a week with everybody? Or?
No, nothing. They asked me how I felt, you know, did any discomfort anytime, you know, throwing the ball up against the wall. And then I started taking a tennis ball, throwing it up against the wall. It felt pretty good. And I then went to a baseball and started throwing a baseball up against the wall. And that was after about a month and a half, 2 months. And then I got down to the point where I started feeling pretty good. And yet my scar was still pink. You know, I still had adhesions being snapped out, and I was picking them out of the scar. You know, the sutures were coming out of my scar.
Right.
Back then they used catgut, you know, to sew up the incision. And so, you know, I'm out there. It was still purple. I mean, it hadn't even healed yet. And I'm out there starting to throw up against the wall. It starts feeling pretty good. I'm coming around to about 2.5, maybe 2 3/4 months down the road. And I start throwing a little harder up against the wall. And I start backing up a little further. And my arm's starting to feel pretty good. So I immediately went in and called Dr. Jobe. And I said, Frank, I said, my arm's starting to feel pretty good. He goes, well, you know what you have to do. I said, what's that? He goes, you got to break the adhesions. And I said, oh, yeah, I heard about that. So I got to let one go I have one real good, and that should do it, should pop them loose. And it may hurt. It may not. It may hurt for a short period of time. He goes, I don't know. It depends how you handle it. So I went back up on the wall, back outside with my baseball, and I took a wind-up. And, you know, after I threw a couple, I got loose, and I let one go. And, man, did it hurt. I thought I broke my arm again. I literally did. But, you know, the pain went away gradually, which meant, okay, that's a good sign. But I immediately went in to the trainer, Al Wilder, and I sat down with Al, and we iced my arm down, and I went and called Frank Jobe. I said, well, I did it. He goes, did it hurt? And I said, yes, it did hurt. And this is all done long-distance relationship. I mean, this was My doctor's in Los Angeles at Sentinel Hospital in L.A., and I'm talking to him on a phone in San Francisco, and our team physician was in Stanford Medical Center down the road. And I did this all by myself. You know, go figure. You talk about doing something like that by yourself in today's baseball world. It is not going to happen. You are under a microscope. They watch you like a hawk. You do what the trainers tell you to do. You do what the doctors tell you to do. And is it right for you? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Do you get a second opinion? No. That's the only opinion you're going to be given, and that's the only opinion you're going to run with. Okay? And that's what they're fed with. A lot of the doctors are good, but there's other ones out there that believe in different types of training methodologies for rehab. And, you know, I look at it and I go, there's only one person that knows what he can and cannot do, the pitcher himself. You can't specifically put a guy out there who's different than, say, a Matt Harvey or a Jacob DeGrom or Noah Syndergaard. You know, and you look at those three guys, they're all different. Yeah, they all throw good and they all throw hard, but they're all different. Every single one of them is different. No pitcher is the same. Everyone's got a fingerprint. All the pitchers have a fingerprint of their motion, their point of release. Everything is different. So you can't sit there and dictate one specific type of workout for a pitcher going through Tommy John rehab and say that is going to work. Right. I don't know. In my opinion, it's an impossibility. It's an impossibility.
Well, getting back to what we were talking about with the issues with Tommy John surgery so early in the season and these issues that come up. I mean, the Bergen Record here in New Jersey did some great work this month exploring pitcher injury issues, both actual as well as potential and likely, as some might say. MLB writer Mike Borkenoff explored pitcher entering the Tommy John danger zone. There's some really good stuff here. Borkenoff cited John Rigelli's Tommy John database. Over the past years, 27% of all TJ surgeries have occurred in March or April. Last year, 26 of 81 total surgeries happened in those 2 months, and just 32 over the last 6 months of the year. In 2015, there was 38 in February and March, 43 from July on, first on. So it just seems like a lot of these things happen in the spring, and I'd be curious to know if you have any thoughts, like why that's happening.
House had said that you need to throw all the time.
Yes.
And then Noah's basically said, well, I get where Tom's coming from, but I popped in about 200 plus innings, and I'm about at the point where I had to take a break, and I take a break from it. And the methodology of the New York Mets now is not to throw all the time now; it's to take a break. Because they were throwing all the time, and that didn't work. Yeah. And that didn't work. And they lost 3 of their best pitchers, except for Noah Syndergaard. And I think Noah's sitting back watching these other guys go down, saying, I'm not going to be number 3. I'm not going to be number 3. And here's the other thing. They got Tom House sitting there saying, well, you got to throw year-round. But then there's, on the other hand of the spectrum, you've got Dr. Glenn Fleissig and Dr. Jim McAndrews, who are the Tommy John experts now, saying that we need pitch counts.
Right.
And they both work together. House, Fleissig, and Andrews work together. So the left hand is not agreeing with what the right hand has to say. Come on, there's got to be something wrong with that. All right.
Yeah, there was a couple things in the Bob Klapisch article as well. Klapisch is also with the Bergen Record, national baseball writer. He had a conversation with former Braves reliever, former Braves pitching coach, and so-called pitching guru Tom House, who believes Mets starter Noah Syndergaard is a serious injury risk because he added substantial muscle without throwing over the winter. His point is about quote unquote unskilled muscle. Unless you're picking up a ball, you're getting stronger. You just adding muscle that doesn't know how to throw. And House believes that there's a 60 to 65.3% likelihood that Thor suffers an injury sometime mid-season.
I disagree with that. I really do. That muscle is already trained to throw. But the Syndergaard sat there and said, I disagree with that because of the fact that I am flexible and I do a lot of stretching, which is the most important thing for a guy like Noah.
Right.
Go out and stretch, and to make sure he elongates his muscles, even though he put on the weight, he's stretching his muscles out, and that's what you need to do when you're training your body to get back in shape for the spring.
Right.
I think Noah Syndergaard is going to have a heck of a year because he put on the extra weight. That might give him the little extra endurance that he needs going down. Instead of being a 6 and 7 inning guy, he can be a 8 and 9 inning guy.
Right. He does. He probably needs to run more like the guys. I mean, when you're there in the fall league and you're there in Arizona for early spring training, are you seeing these guys run the way you guys ran?
No, not at all.
Stories you told me.
Not at all. Not at all. We used to run foul line to foul line and throw up, at the end of our workout. I mean, that's how much we pounded ourselves running, because we knew that the legs were the most important thing. And if you don't use your legs, that's when the arm takes a lot of the brunt of the forces from the body of throwing overhand. And people don't realize it, Dave. They don't realize it. That if you don't use your legs, all you're doing is throwing with upper torso and core muscle.
Right.
All right, you can generate speed with that, but how much more speed would you generate if you were using your lower half of your body and starting the energy from the ground up? When your plant foot hits the mound, the energy comes up through that leg and goes through your body and out your hand. And that's how you gain velocity. Not throwing, stand tall and fall, or, I disagree with that theory 100%. And if you don't use your legs, and all the greats use their legs. And I know Nolan Ryan, he praises Tom House for extending his career. But also, Nolan Ryan was not a stand tall and fall guy, which is what Tom House preaches. Nolan Ryan was a drop and drive guy like Tom Seaver because he came from the Mets organization.
Now quickly explain the difference between stand tall and fall and drop and drive.
Stand, fall, and tall, floating position, his back leg straight up down, no crack in the leg. Pockets, as we would say. He doesn't rotate himself. All right?
Mm-hmm.
As he's driving down the mound, all he does is takes his left or his right leg, that is his plant leg, all right? All he does is just turn and fall straight down and puts the foot down. He doesn't get extension of his body. All he's doing is just planting down and throwing the ball, and most of the time they stand straight up. With a drop and drive motion, a pitcher will rotate his body. He'll show his pockets and his number to his catcher with his eyes fixed on the target. He will then come off and drive down that mound. The mound is a lever. It's got an angle on it. So he's going to push and drive down that mound, and as the leg comes down, with all that energy coming out forcefully, he will plant his left or right foot. He will plant, and the energy when he hits will shoot up his body, up that leg, up through his core muscles, core muscles. That's where you get your power. So it's like a transfer station from the leg to the core muscles, and it goes up through the shoulder and out through the hand at the point of release. Now, that's a drop and drive pitcher. And you look at the guys like Tom Seaver, Stan Koufax, Don Drysdale, Gaylord Perry was not a power pitcher, but he was still a drop and drive guy. Juan Marichal was a drop and drive. High leg kick Warren Spahn, same way. You look at all the old pitchers, and you look at Steve Carlton, drop and drive, okay? You look at guys that are in the Braves organization where Tom House came out of, all right? But the pitching coach there that had the success with that pitching staff wasn't Tom House. It was Leo Mazzoni, who was a drop and drive advocate, okay? So when you look at that, and you look at all the guys today that are throwing, almost all of them are using this drop and drive methodology. And sadly but true, you've got to use your legs. You've got to use your legs. You know, even Mike Marshall, Dr. Mike Marshall, he even says you got to use your legs. Okay?
Right.
You know, and you know, a lot of guys just don't understand where the legs come in. I was always told from all the greats, Gibson was a definite drop and drive guy. I know he dropped me a few times, and he drove at me.
Right. That's funny. Well, you know, we were talking regarding some of the Mets pitchers that have had some issues. You know, in 2015, as we were talking, Zach Wheeler suffered a torn UCL, underwent successful TJ. Last season, he continued his rehab. There were thoughts he would be back by June, but after he made a rehab start on August 6th for the Mets at their Port St. Lucie affiliate, he was diagnosed with a mild flexor strain and shut down for the remainder of the season.
That's what happens. That's what happens, yeah. The flexor strain. The flexor strain occurs, you know, so.
Now, what is that exactly?
The flexor muscle is a muscle, we call it the trigger. It's relatively in the same area. It's what we call the residual from Tommy John surgery because it's so weak in the elbow. What comes is chain reaction occurs and the flexor muscle follows suit because it's taken all the blunt of the pitching exercise and that it now gets hurt. All right? So it's a chain reaction. So if you're not strengthening up your ulnar collateral ligament or your forearm where the ulnar collateral ligament's located in the elbow and the forearm in front of it, remember, everything's a chain reaction. But when you throw the ball, it comes from the back side to the front, not the front side to the back. Mm-hmm. Okay, the energy goes to the hand. It goes to the hand, okay, and the flexor is on the way. But if that muscle is weak in the ulna area, then the flexor muscles are definitely going to take the blunt in the next chain of command in a kinetic chain sequence.
Right. Now, Wheeler has a 5-pitch repertoire. The 4-seam fastball, 2-seam curveball, changeup, slider, what have you. The 2-seam fastball as well. Does it matter what the pitcher's repertoire is when he's recovering from TJ?
Yes.
Does that play into it at all?
Yeah, it does. Basically, the slider is a no-no. The cutter is a no-no. A lot of guys have to build their strength up. That's why they'll go to a 2-seam fastball and a regular straight fastball and maybe a changeup. And then they'll work on their sliders a little bit, maybe throw their curveballs a lot more because it's easier to throw. But any type of breaking ball, curveball, slider is going to affect the ulna area because the ulna is pointing at the point of release. The ulna points towards the catcher. All right, like the hatchet. You do the hatchet with the palm of your hand. When you throw a fastball, the palm is pointing at the hitter. All right. When you throw a curveball, your hand turns and the ulna lines up with the palm of your hand into the ulna all the way down to the elbow. Okay.
Right.
So what happens at the point of release? If it's not in a line and it's dropping, the hand drops out to the right on a right-hander or to the left on a left-hander. Then consequently, you're going to have another injury because the strain is going to be right on the ulna again. Okay, and you could tear your arm again, which guys have done before because they are more of a slider pitcher. And I'll give you an example. Brian Wilson of the San Francisco Giants and
closer.
LSU, yep, great pitcher, great closer. Slider, 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 slider. Tommy John surgery. Comes back. Does well. Good fastball. Again, slider, 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 slider. Hurt again. Second one. In college. He had one in college, one in the big leagues, two in the big leagues, a third one in it, 4 Tommy John surgeries. Because he threw the slider. Slider, slider, slider. But if that hand flops, and which I've seen Brian do a lot of times, he gets underneath the ball on the slider, that's where you'll hurt your arm. You have to keep your palm in line with the ulna at the point of release, like throwing a football. Same way. Okay?
Right. Gotcha. So, I mean, I think we're coming close to it here, but I do want to get your thoughts on this epidemic, and it is an epidemic of so many young pitchers, and not just at the major league level, but in the minors, in college, and even in high school in some real extreme cases, are having to undergo this surgery, and some of them are already seeing it as something of a badge of courage. And I kind of want to get your thoughts there.
Well, you know, I've always been an advocate of work from your chest down, work hard. Work the weights on your legs, run a lot. Do not heavy weight, but do enough weight that matches your body weight. And now they're doing Olympic lifting to see who's the Hulk of Hogan's, you know, and whatever, and the Hulk himself, for all I know.
Yeah.
But, you know, Olympic lifting is for Olympic lifters, okay? It's not for a baseball player, all right? It is for Olympic lifters. That designed workout is for heavy weights. Are you put 60-plus feet, 70 feet, doing a discus? Are you going to do Olympic lifting? It has no bearing on what a pitcher's workout's going to be. You don't train battleships. You train PT boats that are powerful and fast. Fast twitch muscles are the key. And when I heard this, and they say, everybody's going to do this. And I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. Everybody? You know, you can't put in these workouts to be, and that is the problem why there is a rash of Tommy John surgeries. They tell all the trainers, this is the workout we're going to do. This is a specifically licensed workout we're going to do for major league players, pitchers especially. And everyone goes, okay, because they work for the ball club, they work for Major League Baseball, and they're gonna toe the mark. But is it the right workout for a pitcher? No, they're all different. All these guys are different. A guy like Baumgartner, he can handle an Olympic lifting workout. But you give that same workout to a guy like Clayton Kershaw, he can't handle that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Kershaw was a football player, too. He played with Matt Stafford back in high school. So, Johnny, I think we're
in a time period. I hear the music in the background. Well,
this is fun, Johnny. We got a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah, we got a lot, and I think it's a great thing, and you know, to be able to discuss this, David, and with you especially, and it is an ongoing problem, and it really saddens my heart to see that. Well, recently there was Harold Reynolds came up and said that Major League Baseball needs to talk to the old pitchers that had longevity in the league, 200-plus innings, you know, pitching 3 and 4 innings, coming back a day with 1 day of rest like I did, okay? Starting games and going 9, going 7, going 8. I wasn't throwing every week, but yet I went 7 and 8 innings. Okay, something in my training forte allowed me to do that.
Right.
So why are these guys not being able to do that now? Because they're so nonspecific about their training, which is specific.
Correct.
It's like, what are they doing without the knowledge of the ball club? That's one question I asked. Are they working out with a personal trainer, which some are? Do they have permission to do this workout from the ball club? Does their pitching coach know what workout they're doing? Are they going to winter ball as a young player and playing in winter ball to try to get innings? And I can understand going to winter ball if you only knock down maybe 60 innings and you're a starting pitcher coming off a rehab, then you should go to winter ball and rack up maybe 50, 60 more innings so you get at least 100 innings in before you go to spring training.
Right.
But I don't recommend that for a Noah Syndergaard to go down to winter ball and go down and pitch after he knocked down 230-plus innings. Or a Matt Harvey or any of your top starters, your Scherzers. Why hasn't Matt Scherzer, with that funky windup he has, ever had an arm problem?
Mm-hmm.
Good question, isn't it?
It is.
Swing your own swing. Pitch your own motion. Everybody is different. The swing your own swing is Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer, two greats. Don't try to emulate Tiger Woods. Don't try to emulate Arnold Palmer. God forbid, if you saw Arnold swing, you wouldn't even try. Or Jack for that matter. But swing your own swing. Hit the ball the way you know how. Throw the ball the way you know how. And what they got to do is try to work these guys out according to how they're throwing the ball to prevent injuries and build up those specific areas. And they're not doing it. They're not doing it. They're only touching on half of it. They need to touch on all of it to be successful.
Right.
That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Well, that is the end of this show, and it was a good one.
Yeah.
Boy, I'd like to thank you all for listening, and remember, you can buy a copy of Fastball John on Amazon.com and at Barnes & Noble. And it is a great read, I must say. My co-author and I, we knocked one down here. We even like going back and reading it ourselves. But that's the fun part. That's the fun part of it. But it's been a fun journey for us to do this project, and I'm glad to see that a lot of people are out there enjoying it. So remember, Amazon.com, Fastball John by John D'Acquisto and Dave Jordon. Thank you for listening tonight, and that was another great show for us, Dave. And thanks for being my co-host. Love you, brother.
Thanks, Johnny. Love you too, Bill.
All right.
Okay.